If you aren't terrified of the ocean, you will be after you watch this video. The stuff that you've seen on TV and the internet painted a pretty picture of what the ocean is like, but the reality of what it actually is quite different. Most of what everyone knows about the ocean is only about the top 200 meters, but that only makes up about 2% of how deep the ocean actually is. If you aren't terrified of the ocean, you will be after you watch this video. Okay, so how deep is the ocean? Is it like 10 times deeper than your average swimming pool? Or maybe it's more like 50 times deeper than that. Could it even be deeper than the height of the Empire State Building? Hold on to your snorkels, because that's not even close. The ocean is so mind-boggling deep that scientists had to actually cut it up into zones. And each zone has its own ecosystem and wild critters lurking in its depth. But let's start off with the first one, the sunlight zone. And as the name suggests, the sunlight zone is the most well-lit part of the ocean. You may be asking, did I say well-lit? So are there no parts of the ocean with any sunlight? Actually, as you go deeper into the depths of the ocean, not only does it get darker, but eventually it turns pitch black. That's because, unlike what most people believe, water does actually absorb light. Water is not actually entirely see-through. It only appears transparent in a glass or bathtub because there's not much of it in it. But if you get enough water in one place, it'll block out light so much that you won't even be able to see what's on the other side. In fact, once you're at the 200-meter mark in the ocean, you won't even be able to tell if it's daytime or nighttime on the surface. That's also why the sunlight zone ends at that point. So what's it like in the sunlight zone? You can think of it like the cozy little warm corner in the ocean. This is where the waters are warm and the plants thrive thanks to that big ball of fire in the sky. No wonder it's a hot spots from all sea creatures, from seals to sharks to jellyfish. But hold on, let's not forget about the little guys. I'm talking about phytoplankton, the microscopic powerhouses that keep the ecosystem in the ocean flourishing. These organisms might be tiny, but they have an enormous, important role. So what's their secret sauce? It's all about the photosynthesis, baby. They're basically the ocean's versions of solar panels. Like plants, phytoplankton work their magic, turning sunlight into energy, releasing the oxygen into the ocean. You can basically owe all ocean life to these little guys. So let's talk about how deep 200 meters actually is and what it will be like going from the surface all the way down to that point. For context, your average swimming pool barely scratches the surface at 5 meters deep. So once you're 5 meters deep, it will basically feel like you're in a swimming pool, but with a much better view, and maybe even with some scary and creepy swimming buddies. After that, we'll go down to 12 meters. This is where you'll find the infamous Pearl Harbor wreckage. Going down a few meters more at 60 meters, you'll be going down to the deepest pool on Earth. Now at this point, you'll already notice that things are getting a little bit darker. At 93 meters in depth, that's when you'll notice the wreckage of the RMS Lusitania. This was a British ocean liner that was en route from New York to Liverpool and was sunk by a German submarine 1 year after World War I started. Oh, and speaking of 93 meters, that's essentially the height of the Statue of Liberty. So even after you've gone down the entire height of the Statue of Liberty, you haven't even reached halfway of the end of the sunlight zone. At 152 meters, we have essentially reached the depths of the Yellow Sea. Up next, we have the deepest free dive at 214 meters by Herbert Niche. He went an amazing 4 minutes and 24 seconds without taking a single breath. I don't know about you, bro, but I'm already feeling dizzy. And this might seem a little bit too deep already, but considering the depths we're about to get into in this video, the sunlight zone is just a thin layer on the ocean. Okay, so now this is where things get a little bit more creepy. This is the twilight zone. This is the dark and mysterious realm of the ocean just beyond the gentle touch of sunlight. Starting from the 200 meter mark, it's a downward plunge into the abyss towards the end of the twilight zone at 1,000 meters. But despite how dark and shadowy this zone is, this zone is actually full of life. Recent studies have shown that you'll find more fish hanging out in the twilight zone than the entire ocean combined. So who's crashing the party down here? We've got a wide variety of fish, squid, some seriously big crustaceans, and let's not forget about our squishy friends, the jellyfish. All these creatures live together alongside microscopic bacteria called zooplankton, like a big happy underwater family. But what's actually impressive about creatures living down here is their ability to withstand harsh environment. We're talking freezing temperatures and pressures reaching 1,500 pounds per square inch. To put things in perspective, that's like having a 5-ton boulder sitting on your hand. Now imagine what kind of pressure that would do to somebody's face. No, that's not what happened to my face. So what's it like going from 200 to 1,000 meters deep? Well, at 300 meters, we've already reached the height of the Eiffel Tower. Just a bit deeper at 306 meters, you'll reach the depth of the Dead Sea, which is the saltiest sea on the planet. And if that's not mind-blowing enough, hold on to your snorkels, because at 332 meters down, you're diving deep as Ahmed Gabir. This is the dude who holds the world record for the deepest dive. In other words, if you had an oxygen tank strapped on your back and all the swimming gear that could help, this is the farthest down that you could go. Going down, as we plunge down to 426 meters, now we reach the iconic Rock of Gibraltar. At a staggering 828 meters, you're now plunging down to the depths of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the planet. But I don't know about you, but at this point, I'm not sure if I have a fear of the ocean or heights. If you thought the Twilight Zone was eerie, you ain't seen nothing yet. because next is just downright horror. Once you hit 1,000 meters, it's lights out, literally. I'm talking pitch black darkness, and even the faintest ray of light vanishes all the way down to 4,000 meters. Talk about diving into an abyss. But that's not even the worst part. Down here, it's like living in a deep freezer with degrees as low as 4 degrees Celsius. Think of Antarctica in a freezer, and for good measure, just add a few bits of frostbite on top of that. It's so cold down here that your bones would even shiver if they could. Let's talk about pressure. If we look at the numbers, from all the water that surrounds you from 4,000 meters up, this is about 6,000 psi. What do you think the weight of a shipping container would be to exert that kind of pressure? 100 tons? Maybe 10,000 tons? You're close. Just multiply that times 6 with a few thousand on top. Yeah, I'm talking about a shipping container that weighs over 62,000 tons. By now, you're probably thinking, there's no way nothing could be living down here, right? But despite all the madness, life finds a way, bro. Let's talk about one particular creature that lives here. But before I show you what it looks like, brace yourselves, because this isn't something you want living on the same planet as you. It's more like an alien than a fish, if you ask me. I'm talking about the abomination called the anglerfish. Yeah, this thing is real. It could be as big as 40 inches and weigh up to 110 pounds. These freaks of nature are generally dark gray or dark brown in color. They have massive heads with large mouths filled with sharp razor teeth. And yeah, I see that bling sticking out of his head too. It's actually a bioluminescent lure that anglerfish use to attract its prey. And in a terrain surrounded by nothing but blackness, any light is like having a mirage in the desert. It's the survival of the freakiest down here. Honestly though, I'm a little bummed because all the movies promised us mermaid at this point, but we get this thing instead. Let me show you how deep it is to actually go from 1,000 to 4,000 meters deep. At 1,200 meters, we have the maximum diving depth of the great white shark. And just at a tad bit deeper at 1,205 meters, that's the average depth of the Arctic Ocean. And get this, we're not even close to hitting bottom yet. At 1,620 meters, we're diving as deep as the world's largest lake, Lake Baikal. But it only gets crazier and crazier from here on out. Welcome to my world. At 1,800 meters, we're hitting depths like the Grand Canyon. Then at 2,900 meters, we got the deepest dive recorded at Cuvier's Beak Whale. But hold on to your flippers, because this is where things get real. At 3,800 meters, we're coming face to face with the remains of the Titanic and OceanGate's Titan submarine. Thought of what happened to that sub makes me want to stay away from this depth of the ocean. But just at a couple hundred meters more, at 3,776 meters, this is where Mount Fuji in Japan would meet its peak, but yet underwater. Okay, peeps, we're about to dive into the abysmal zone where things are just gonna get even spookier. In simple terms, this place is beyond human understanding. That's because most of the ocean actually bottoms out at 4,000 meters, but every once in a while, scientists find a trench at about 7,000 meters deep. But how exactly does that work? You see, the ocean's floor isn't just a flat plane. Instead, it actually consists of a lot of geological features like ocean ridges, seamounts, and yep, you guessed it, trenches, that all form through a process called subduction. It's like a tectonic plate tango where one gets pushed and they all kind of form in different ways. The term abysmal zone actually refers to that. At past the 6,000 meter mark, there's not a lot of information on what lives in these waters. But we do know that since there's no sunlight down here, most creatures live by something called bioluminescence. It's like a big disco party down here where creatures communicate with each other by creating their own light in this sea of blackness. Another thing that we know about the creatures living down in the abysmal zone is that they live on the scraps from things above. One such fish that we know in the abysmal zone is the tripod fish, which lives at about 4,720 meters deep. This is quite an odd looking creature, which we also call the stilt walker. It gets its name from its ability to use its legs to stand over the ocean floor, like a tripod, hence the name. But let me tell you one crazy thing about this fish. It doesn't have any eyes to see its prey coming. Instead, it feels out its prey by vibration. Now, on to the fun part. At almost 4,700 meters deep, we've reached the depths of the deepest bay in the world, the Bay of Bengal. A little deeper than that, at 5,000 meters deep, that's where you'll find the remains of the Soviet nuclear submarine, the K-129. At 5,200 meters deep, this is where we reach the depth of the Mediterranean Sea. This is followed by the bone-chilling 5,600 meter deep, which is the greatest depth of the Arctic Ocean. But hold on, we're not quite done yet. But what if we did make it past the 6,000 meter mark? Yes, most oceans are limited to that depth. Certain regions take things to a whole new level, plunging from 6,000 to 11,000 meters deep. This abyss of nightmares is called the hadal zone, and the name eerily comes from the god of the underworld himself, Hades. And things get super scary down here too. The hadal zone is strictly for the brave of heart. We're talking about trenches only, and when you combine them, they make up the landmass of the entire continent of Australia. And the deeper we go, the lesser we know. I should put that on a shirt or something. In fact, here's something you should know about how little we know about life down there. Humans have actually mapped the surface of Mars better than they map the oceans of the earth. While we may not know everything, scientists have done their best to poke around in the ocean and find the secret things hidden down there. One of these secrets is the presence of the cusk eel. As of right now, it holds the records for the deepest fish ever discovered. The fish itself has translucent skin like a snailfish. Scientists believe that these creatures have sensory pores on their head to make up for their lack of eyes. Its skeleton is made up of extremely tough bone to handle the pressure down at those depths. So what else can you expect to see below 6,000 meters? Well, at 6,500 meters, you'll discover the world's deepest shipwreck ever, USS Johnston. This is a World War II class U.S. destroyer. And then at 6,900 meters, we reach the highest points in the Western Hemisphere. At 8,380 meters, we're at the Milwaukee depth, the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. But at 8,850 meters deep, we're at the highest mountain point of any in the world, Mount Everest. And if you think that's the end, just wait. Things are about to get even more real. As of today, the deepest point in the ocean is a place called the Challenger Deep. This is located near the Mariana Islands, the southernmost tip in the Mariana Trench. Just so you can understand how deep this really is, this is 30 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. It stretches a mile wide and 7 kilometers long. And scientists have actually recorded crazy sounds coming from the Challenger Deep. And let me tell you, the pressure from down here is absolutely crazy. At 15,000 psi to 16,000 psi. It's like having 50 jumbo jet planes sitting on your shoulder at one time. Talk about the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? It was thought that nothing could survive these depths with no sunlight. But think again, because we got some crazy survivors living down here, like the bottom-dwelling sea cucumbers. Sea cucumbers range in lengths from 3/4 inch to 6.5 feet long. They even have 8 to 32 feet around their mouths like tentacles. They use these tentacles to snag and snack on microscopic prey like algae. It's actually crazy to see that some creatures are actually conquering the deep depths of the ocean. Astonishingly enough, humans did actually plunge down there to study these creatures. At just shy of the 11,000 meter mark, marine biologists sent the submarine, the Trieste. This was the first crewed vessel ever to reach the bottom of the ocean floor. This vessel was piloted by Jack Piccard and Don Walsh in 1960. This historic dive took 5 hours to reach the ocean floor and 3 hours back up to reach the surface. But they could only spend about 20 minutes down there from the immense pressure that actually started to crack the windows. But even now, it's quite literally unknown how deep the ocean actually is. Who knows what other mysteries lies in the abyss of our ocean? Maybe we will find a place that's deeper than 11,000 meters. So how deep can you swim and how long can you hold your breath? And you ready to go swimming? Let me know in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe and like this video. Oh yeah, and make sure you check this one out for more.